When three World War I soldiers are made to stand on trial for cowardice when their attack on the enemy failed, Colonel Dax, portrayed brilliantly by Kirk Douglas, defends his men for the unjust fate being thrust upon them. Paths of Glory is about the corrupt and egocentric nature of war, where men will do even the harshest of acts if it means they will profit from it. That's where the contrast is with Colonel Dax, where he recognizes the wrongdoings around him and attempts to play by the rules whilst fighting the system, until he lays it all out towards the men responsible for their inhumane acts of betrayal towards their own people. The World War I setting in France of 1916 showcases the extremely gritty and raw reality of being deep in the trenches. Stanley Kubrick expertly crafts each scene with such meticulous detail as to the realities of being a soldier on the cusp of entering the battlefield, not knowing whether or not he will survive. Within the depths of the trenches lies the bunkers of which our characters repose and form their battle plans. The tight and dense environment, filled with wooden logs and bags holding up the little den they have made, gives the feeling of both safety and secureness, yet also unease and insecurity, due to the notion of being below ground in such a hostile and unpredictable environment. The contrast with the very posh and highly sophisticated setting in the general's meeting rooms, with these lavish halls and rooms straight out of a royal castle, showcases the discrepancy between the soldiers having to endure the brutality of war on the front lines, all the while the generals sit back and critique their efforts in the comfort of their regal surroundings. Their rooms are lined with thousands of books adorning the walls, and giant castle doors, giving them that blanket sense of security that the soldiers do not have whilst risking their lives hunkered down in the trenches of the battlefield. The tension only feels all the more heightened when Colonel Dax is marching through his battalion, as one by one their eyes meet his, which Kubrick framed from the audience's point of view. It gives the scene such realism when it feels as if we are the ones marching through the trenches, seeing each brave yet afraid soldier's face as we are on the literal edge of entering into the lion's den. During the court procedure of the three soldiers held for questioning, we see the use of a lot of medium shots, with the framing being held close to each soldier's upper body, giving us their full attention, yet retaining the background, with the other two soldiers sitting and the guards with their rifles at their sides. This gives the scene a sense of containment and a feeling to the audience that they too are being questioned and have no way to escape this procedure, much of which Colonel Dax attempted to prevent as well. Each time that we see Colonel Dax get a little impatient or frustrated with having to go through the motions of the hearing, we have a full close-up on Kirk Douglas's face. The choice in making this framing decision is to put emphasis on the absurdity Dax feels of the entire questioning and for the audience to pay even extra attention to his words. During Colonel Dax's defense plea, Kubrick places the camera following Kirk Douglas behind the row of generals and interestingly not in front. This gives the immediate understanding that Colonel Dax is the one with the upper hand at this given time, with his chance to give the justice to his three men in front of the court. As he paces back and forth making his statements, the camera stops as he stops and continues walking along when he resumes. This puts the audience in line, both literally and narratively, with Dax's viewpoint on the situation. I quite love how this particular shot gives the audience the feeling of Dax's authority and his adamant stand on the unfairness of this trial.
This court-martial is such a stain and such a disgrace. The case made against these men is a mockery of all human justice.
The editing is very simple for its use to emphasize a character's motivation or piece of dialogue. When the scene wants to draw our attention towards the important feelings of a character, like Colonel Dax in the scene between him and the general, we see a close-up of Kirk Douglas as he gently but angrily stresses the ridicule of the general's immoral comments towards his own soldiers. Throughout the film, Kubrick utilizes the very common and cliché transition of films made in the 40s and 50s with fade to blacks. The following scene opens directly from that black screen and we see the next setting right away. The use of the musical score is very carefully placed throughout the film. In the most tensive scenes in the trenches and on the battlefield, we only hear the rumblings of explosions and missiles soaring through the air before they make a bombastic blast of impact over the heads of the soldiers. Not featuring any music here is an insightful choice, as this heightens the scene onto a level of realism and placing the audience deep within the film's war setting even more. When we do hear any use of the score, it is very sparingly used. The main theme of Paths of Glory, used over the opening credits, is very triumphant with its use of marching band drums and boosts the military aesthetic of the film right from the get-go. It is really the only instance of this theme until the end of the film, where it returns after the final scene of the soldiers humming along to the captive German girl's song. During the war on the battlefield of No Man's Land, Kubrick positions the frame to an angle on the left of the battlefield, following the battalion as they make their way across the dreaded and decrepit wasteland. The frame moving as they carefully taking each step forward, making the audience feel that they are moving just as cautiously through this dangerous environment along with them. The repeated overhead viewpoint shot overlooking the court procedure really symbolizes the divide in the soldiers and the generals who are questioning them. In this grand and regal hall, it really gives the impression that this hearing truly is uncalled for and a royal waste of time. Paths of Glory is perhaps the most notable anti-war film, especially for its time of release in 1957. Its messages about the selfish aspects of war are loud and clear, and the emotional weight of the reality of the fate of the soldiers does not shy away from what really happened at this time in history.